The Johnsky is a YouTube channel run by and run for people over the age of 13. People under the age of 13 should click off of this video right now, or watch with a parent or guardian. Viewer discretion is advised.
You don't scare me!
Milt is freaking to Englishman. My name is King Prime. Welcome back to another video here on the YouTube channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at another Star Wars The Vintage Collection figure, that being the Star Wars The Vintage Collection Return of the Jedi Nunb. Now, everybody from my generation of Star Wars fans, those Clone Wars kids who came to adulthood in the mid to late 2010s, know of this character as the funny man. Yeah. I love Nunb. I played Battlefront 2015 for like 30 hours straight when it came out, when I was, 13 years old. This guy was the shit. I love Nunb. Of course, we all know Nunb from Star Wars Return of the Jedi. He co-piloted the Falcon with Lando. But for me, this figure is special because this is a chance to get one of the most legendary heroes from my childhood video games in plastic form. But before we take a look at the figure, let's take a look at the card itself. Of course, we do have that nice Return of the Jedi logo done up in that nice blood red that we're used to. We do have the Return of the Jedi 40th anagram up at the top there, as well as his name with a light baby blue, kind of like horizon blue backing for the nameplate and the blue pill. You have a picture of Nien there, looking all, slimy and Celestian. We do have the nice Kenner logo on the bottom there. On the other side, we have the other figures in the wave. All these guys from Jabba's Palace, who I will not be getting. Tusken Boba, who I will not be getting. Nunb, obviously. Cad Bane, who I've already reviewed. And Moff Jar, who I have already reviewed. At the bottom, we have some legal jargon, and that is about it. I say it in every single video, my friends, but you only really care about the packaging. If you are a carded or box collector, of which I am not, I'm here to open and review toys, and that is just what I'm going to do. Freeze frame.
Also realize that in addition to firing the missiles and stuff, and while I'm waiting for my ammo to reload, I can just cycle to the different positions on this gunship and do this, and then at the end of it all, just get the hardest album cover of all time.
Freeze frame on freeze. Here we have Nunb out of the packaging. Before we take a look at him himself, let's take a look at his accessories. Of course, up first we do have his blaster pistol, which is unfortunately not the DH-17 that we youngins are used to, but rather the old style. Truthfully, I do not know how to identify. It's very reminiscent of the Death Star blaster or whatever that old vintage Kenner blaster was. But this is the one that comes with Nunb. Of course, he can hold it like so, pointed towards you, making you and all that stuff. He does have a pretty loose grip on this blaster, admittedly, but honestly, it's not going to fall out. It's not that big of an issue. And of course, there is a holster there, so you can, of course, put it right into that holster and leave it there for when he needs to draw on some imps. Secondly, we do have the blaster rifle, which again, I'm not too familiar with. In the game, this was a pulse cannon, and this is, again, not a blaster I'm familiar with. I'm usually familiar with all the blasters that came in Battlefront, and this is not one of them. So if you know what this blaster is, or the other blaster, leave it in the comments, and I'm sure I'll get around to it. And of course, Nien can hold this blaster rifle, not as securely as the first one, but he can, of course, just, hold it and pose like he's actually going to use it. Just pray he doesn't snipe you from halfway across the map, because that's what he tended to do to me. But I'll take that aside. And we can actually look at Nien himself. This figure does look pretty okay. Of course, the head sculpt is spot on for a Celestian. But, of course, there isn't a lot of detail around his mouth where all the slime would be and all that stuff. Probably because they don't want to scare the shit out of some kids who ever buy this. But I think it's alright. He has that, brown kind of bomber's skull cap that the Celestians wear and that he wore in the film. He has that nice red jumpsuit, which go into some gaiters around his legs. Those are actually kind of weathered with some light tanned dry brushing, which is very nice to see. He has a belt buckle picked out in silver there on his belt, and he's wearing a sort of Han Solo-esque vest, which is very nice to see. Very plain. His gloves are kind of strange, and his hands are really small, so it kind of makes holding things hard. But because the hands are very soft, they can conform to the size of blasters very easily, so that he can get a better grip on them, which is good. As for the articulation of Nien, he does have a ball joint at the head, just a single ball joint because this is a repack of an older figure. He has a full range of motion at the shoulders, can go all the way up and all the way around, which is very nice. He does have an elbow bend, which is very good. Can also swivel there as well. He does have a rotation at the wrist, or rather at the middle of his forearm, because it's not actually his wrist. His wrist is right there, the cut's right there, but whatever. And that's about it. There's no up and down or in and out there because this is an older figure, which sucks, but I, understand why. I'll talk about it in a little bit. He does have a waist swivel, which is very nice to see, as well as only some rotations for hips. Nothing to go outwards to either side, just, a sitting joint, which is unfortunate to see. He does have a knee bend and a knee swivel, which is very good, as well as a rotation at the ankle and an ankle down, which you should be very careful with because of something I'll talk about in a little bit, and an ankle up about that far. So not super far, but the articulation is there. But that's enough about Nien himself. Let's get some other figures in to compare him to Freeze Frame. Freeze Frame on Freeze. Here is Nunb next to our previous Star Wars Vintage Collection review, the Vintage Collection Sabine Wren. Sabine is just a bit taller than Nien, as you can see there. Here he is next to the golden standard of action figures himself, Star Wars Vintage Collection Dark Times Darth Vader, who, of course, towers over him, as he rightfully should. Here he is next to a Vitruvian Hax skeleton, who makes his way into more and more videos. And here he is next to a Mandalorian custom of my own design. As you can see, Nunb is a shorty, which is very funny to see, but also quite accurate to how he actually appeared in the movies and in the games. He was always just kind of he's a little guy, he's just a little guy. But that's enough for the comparison. Let's move on to my final thoughts so I can tell you exactly what I think about this figure. Freeze Frame. Freeze Frame on Freeze. So overall, Nunb is just an okay figure. Even though I love the character, and seemingly this figure is fine, there are a few fatal flaws with this figure. The one thing that I didn't mention at all in the entirety of the review is that the QC of this figure is absolutely god-awful. This is actually the second Nunb figure I owned. The first one that I got for this reissue actually broke on me the second I took it out of the packaging, which really sucks and is a huge blow on Hasbro's part, who I already have a truthfully negative opinion of. This also goes along to what I'm saying about his hands, which are very small and hard to hold things. I don't like the way that this figure is sculpted, and yes, I know this is a repack, but Hasbro is a multi-billion with a B dollar company and should be able to retool certain parts of this figure in order to meet modern standards. That means new hips, new hands, and more joints at the head and wrists. It also means new accessories. I would have loved to have a sentry turret for him to have, or even some proximity charges, or even the accurate weapons from Battlefront 2015, so we could have a 2015 version of Nunb. Not to say that I'm not grateful for this modern interpretation of Nunb, but I know that Hasbro can do better, and they're really just scraping the bottom of the barrel with this thing. This figure is one that I wanted since 2015, since the game came out. And though I would have been happy with this back then, I know that they can do more with it now, and why they don't really confuses me. That being said, I have said in this very video that this is an okay figure. There is objectively nothing wrong with it. It is just some things that I do not like with it that really grind my gears. But if what I've said hasn't dissuaded you, really like Nunb, Lando Calrissian, Return of the Jedi, Star Wars in general, make sure you share this video with your friends, share it with your Facebook groups, all that good stuff. If you liked the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe down below. Keeps helping the channel grow, keeps helping me pump out this content. That's going to be pretty much it for this time, my friends. Thank you all so very much for watching, and as always, peace.